This is the Rumors Are True podcast, brought to you by Pantheon Media Network.
This is Cody Bonnet from As Cities Burn, and you're listening to the Rumors Are True podcast.
Welcome, this is Jeremy Allen Gould, and I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that the rumors you have all heard are true. I started this podcast to have a platform for the bands and artists that I've worked with in the past, as well as new musicians and artists that influenced myself and many others. The Rumors Are True podcast is an opportunity for the artists to tell their story their way. I'm still in the business of confirming rumors. I still love a good conversation, and I still freaking love music. So thanks again for joining me on this journey, and I hope you like what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true.
On a Sunday, feeling like we're gold, and when nothing's short of invincible, invincible. It starts again. Can you feel it? Takes your breath away. Stop saying we're invincible. We're surrounded around your morning, fighting, unrewarding. I've been misinforming you, misinforming you. Wanna be so high right now. We're just looking for the inside.
Hey, welcome to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy. Today, I welcome Chris Dudley. You know Chris from the band Underoath. Awesome conversation with Chris. Super honored to have him on this podcast to bring me through his journey through music, as well as what he has upcoming in his not too distant future. So I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Chris Dudley.
Not a Monday, lies that we told. This is where we both go now. From my heart you feel this time, fading now you cross the line. You cross the line.
Chris, what is up, my friend? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I've been looking forward to talking to you. I know we been wanting to do this for a while, so I definitely know you've been busy, but I really appreciate you hanging out with me.
Yeah, sorry it took so long. Yeah, I know we've been talking about. I think it's probably actually been literal years. So
it's been a while.
Sorry it took so long.
You're not the only one in the band that has told me that as well. So just I appreciate you being the first to come on. But yeah,
no
worries,
I try to be a man of my word. It's like my. I always tell I have this joke with my wife where I say, hey, if you ask me to do something, I'll do it. You don't have to remind me every 6 months. So it's that. It's like, dude, I told you back in like 2020, I'd do it. You don't have to ask me every year.
I get it, man. Life happens and you guys are super busy. So I'm super honored nonetheless. Tell me what's going on in your world currently. I know we just saw each other, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so in Jacksonville on the van tour. Kind of bring me to what's going on in your world.
Yeah, so that's been the most recent thing. We have a couple Warped Tour dates that we're playing this year, and we had been throwing around the idea for forever of just literally getting back in a van and playing like a little tiny dive bars again, just for fun, because we did a secret show in Tampa a little while ago where we played a bar, and it was just one of the raddest things. So we ended up once we got booked for those Warped Tour dates, we were like, man, this would be the perfect opportunity to
Yeah.
do that. So we literally bought a van and booked a bunch of little clubs, and we did it all the way up to DC, and it was insane. And then we're going to be doing that again. As we are heading out to the Warp Tour in Long Beach. So I think in a week and a half, I'm leaving to go do it again. And yeah, that's been the most recent thing for Underoath. But also planning, a big tour at the end of the year. But mostly for me, just dadding and, working on some music as always. And, just been busy trying to get the house together currently. All the honey-do list I'm trying to get done before I hit the road again. So
yeah, absolutely. I saw you went on a little trip with your son to see the rocket, or what was that?
Yeah. We did that was very impromptu. We watched. I showed the family this documentary called Apollo 11 that I love, and my son was like in awe with it, and he had asked something about like, hey, do they still do that? And I was like, yeah, the rockets are in Florida. And I looked up when the next rocket launch was, and it was like 6:30 a.m. the following day. And
wow.
I was like, hey, you just want to go? And he was like, when? I was like, well, now. I was like, we can sleep in the car. So we literally camped out in the car.
What a memory.
Drove down there, and core memory stuff. It was really
absolutely
cool. We were standing out on the beach watching the rocket launch and feet in the water, and it was it was magic. It was really, really cool.
That's so cool, man. I love hearing that. It's incredible. Sounds like you're an amazing father, and that's so cool.
I'm just trying not to blow it, daily. But I think that's the parent motto, just try not to screw it all up.
There's no perfect parent, but man, there are ones that you do your part, and that's all that really matters. And just be in their lives and be present, and have those moments like you said. That's really cool. Very
doing
cool.
My best.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, let's talk about growing up for you, Chris. Kind of bring me through some of those bands, some of those records, some of those influences. Kind of pushed you in the direction that you've went in musically.
Man, so I mean, growing up, my household was very musically diverse. My mom was super into like Aretha Franklin and, Creedence Clearwater and Janis Joplin, but then, as, later stuff for then, like Heart and, stuff like that.
Sure.
And then my dad was super into like, Dire Straits and Def Leppard and stuff like that. And then my brother was like into rap at the time, like Public Enemy, Tone Loc stuff. Keith Sweat, like R&B stuff. Yeah. But then he also bought Metallica Black Album, so that was a big one in our house at that point.
Great record.
But it's interesting because like my parents got divorced when I was 9, and we moved to Florida, and the town that we moved to was really tiny. There's only like 3,000 people in the whole town. So like, there was no culture. There was no, music scene. It was very like redneck town. So, my scope of what music was and what was possible with music was fairly small, but I got, turned on to a lot of stuff, from movies, actually back then. Like I remember when I went and saw the first Mortal Kombat movie, and I was like, oh, I want to go buy that soundtrack because there's some cool stuff on there. And like, that was, Napalm Death was on there. Fear Factory was on there. And then I bought like the Spawn soundtrack, and that had like Orange 9mm and Atari Teenage Riot, stuff like that. So that's really what turned me on to the idea that music could be that heavy. And I just knew I liked it. I was like, well, whatever that is really cool. And then when I was in high school, I became friends with Dallas Taylor, who's Underoath's original lead vocalist. And he turned me on to, really the stuff that ended up being the most formative music in my life, like the underground hardcore scene at that point, a lot, but also, a lot of Victory Record stuff, like, Youth of Today and Earth Crisis and,
Sure.
Snapcase, stuff like that. But then, heavier stuff like, Living Sacrifice stuff and, a lot of like the Christian heavy music at the time, like Obliteration, Mortification, Crimson Thorn, stuff like that. I was very just like, hey, how heavy can this get? And that's what I want. So
I love that.
Yeah. So it was an interesting, I guess, path to get there. But, my taste has always been very, very wide. Like I just, all that stuff that I mentioned before that my parents loved at the time, like I still love all that stuff. I'll listen to mostly anything now. Like if you were to just scroll through my recently played, it would look like it's not all the same person. So yeah, which I think hopefully a good thing.
That's awesome. Hey, this is Jeremy with the Rumors Are True podcast. We'll pause for a word from our sponsors. Stick around. You don't want to miss what's next. When did you discover, I guess, at that young age that you could play, the keyboard or obviously be a part of something? Like where did that come from?
So when I was in high school, I was friends with Dallas. And then, me and him became pretty close, and really I just ended up hanging around him and his friend group at the time. And Underoath was a thing back then, but very, there was like a demo tape. And that was really the extent of it. But I was like a barely passable guitar player. Like, I wouldn't have even considered myself a guitar player. I just had a guitar and I played as much as I could, but I was not great or anything. And, I was just, became closer and closer with the guys in the band, and Dallas actually started playing keyboards back then because, back then we were all really into like the, very European death metal sounding stuff,
black
like
metal. Yeah.
There was a lot of, Nightwish stuff and, there was a lot of that type of stuff with like orchestral string arrangements and stuff. So he was like, I'm going to play keyboard and sing. So he was, doing that. He was like, playing keyboard and like also singing at the same time. And, he came to me at one point and he was like, well, we're either, this is just at the time a discussion amongst friends in school. He was like, hey, yeah, we're either going to get a keyboard player or we're not going to have keyboards anymore. Cause I don't want to play and scream at the same time. I don't like it. And, I wasn't a keyboard player. So I was just like, well, I hope you find somebody, good luck. I never even like occurred to me the idea of like being in the band. And I think it was, I was just hanging out with all the guys at one point. And I almost feel like it was Corey that brought it up, or it may have been Dallas. I don't remember, but it was basically, hey, Chris is just here all the time anyway, and he can play guitar. So he has to be able to play keyboards at somewhat. And, again, we were just like in high school, so it didn't really seem like a huge commitment. So it was like, hey, do you just want to play keyboards in the band? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I'll give that a shot. So I learned the stuff that Dallas had written at the time, and then just kind of felt it out from there. And, I didn't think at all at the time that saying yes to being in my friend's band in high school was going to be a decades long career. But that was it. I literally just tripped and fell into it. So yeah,
that's incredible. Well, you mentioned obviously joining the band, and they had put a previous record, Acts of Depression, out. Obviously, were you a fan of that record? And I know they were your friends, but was that something you were into?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was actually there for the entire recording of that record. I was in the studio the whole time, literally just sitting in a chair, just hanging out.
Wow.
And I screamed on one song because they were just like, "Oh,
So
Chris is here the whole time." Yeah, there's like, "Oh, just go scream something." So, no, I loved it. Like, I was really into the whole that whole scene, that whole Florida hardcore scene at the time.
Yeah.
You know, because around that time it was like, you know, Sleeping by the Riverside and Chalice and Yeti,
Overthrow.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, all those bands. So I was just super into that. And you know, also it's, you know, it's your friend's band, so you're always gonna like it. And yeah, I loved it. So it was, you know, for me, it was just kind of like a no brainer. I was like, yeah, I'll do this. Why not? You know?
Yeah. Was that exciting, being asked to do that?
Honestly, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I think it's because it was so not a thing that like. Looking back on it now, I wish I had a memory of like, oh, when did you like join? But back then it was so just like, hey, you want to play keyboards? And I was just like, yeah, sure. You know, there was no,
I love that.
It didn't seem like not in a negative way at all. It just didn't seem like a huge deal. It was just like your friend in high school asking, hey, do you want to play? And I'm just like, yeah, cool. You know? So
did you come into the next record, Cries of the Past, with ideas, and were you, I mean, was that record kind of written when you came to the band, or were you part of the writing process from the beginning?
Both. There were some parts of songs, and I think maybe one entire song that was written before I joined, because that was right when Dallas started playing keyboard. That was right around the time that record was being formed, and it was I think it was even before Active Depression was out. So yeah, so there were, I think there were like two parts that Dallas had written, and then I just kind of took over from there. And it was you know, one of the main things I remember about that whole era was that Corey basically just wrote everything. You know, and you know, he was just like a phenomenal guitar player, you know, wrote insane riffs, and like he was so much better at his instrument than the rest of us, that we all just kind of naturally look toward him. I'm like, okay, we're like, all right, what's next, you know? And so, you know, yeah.
What was that like recording that record? I know it sounds like you obviously were kind of, like you said, looking towards Corey, but for you individually, what was that like? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it exciting? Kind of bring me through recording that.
It was both, honestly. You know, but again, it was just like doing a thing with a bunch of friends. Like, it didn't feel like, you ever watch that movie Rockstar?
Oh, love that movie.
Oh, so like it's one of my favorites. So like when he comes into the room when they're like trying out, you know, singers, like that's what it kind of would seem like it would be from the outside. It's like, oh, join in the band and then go into the studio. But like we recorded that record in a 1-bedroom apartment, you know, just, you know, broke, and you know, there was nothing glamorous about it. So it was, you know, I had never been in this studio to record before. Like I said, I was there for the whole Active Depression. That was actually like a studio that Active Depression was recorded in. So I had seen it, but I had never actually done it before. And I was just, you know, from my recollection, it was very much just like, all right, what's next? Like, what do I do? Okay, I plug this in here. Okay. Like, okay, I play the part now. Like, you know,
that's incredible though, if you think about it. I mean, because you're learning as you go, and it's just like, you know, the wheels are turning at that point. You know, that's really cool.
Very much so, yeah. And I think that's been, you know, the case through, you know, every recording process. You know, just you know, and as you do anything longer, you know, you pick up things here and there, and you know, a couple decades down the road, you'll have a semblance of actually knowing what you're doing. So, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Cries of the Past? I mean, looking back on it, I mean, at the time, was it did it turn out the way you guys wanted it to? And kind of looking back on it, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, at the time we loved it. You know, it was, you know, we wanted it to be very, very dark, very evil sounding. You know, I think overall that worked. You know, I don't remember us ever having regrets about that record around at that time. You know, there's funny little things. It's like it was not recorded to a click track, so there were a couple points in the record, one in particular where when Aaron recorded all the drums first, but he got super excited, so he was just recording it way too fast. So there was like one song in particular where the beginning of it was supposed to be like a breakdown. Like the idea was that it started with just this like just ass beating breakdown.
Yeah.
But Aaron, instead of playing it like a breakdown, he just was playing it like this. So it got to where, all right, now let's record the guitars. And we're just like, well, this isn't a breakdown anymore, but we can't go back and record drums. So like Corey had to record a lead over it. So it seemed like it was on purpose. And you know, small stuff like that where we're just like, you know, not really knowing how to do things. But no, overall, we were really happy with it at the time. And, you know, going back now and listening to it, you know, I think I have a fresh appreciation for, you know, the fact that it was, you know, a bunch of dudes in, you know, high school or just out of high school at the time, you know, recording a record. And, you know, and it's interesting because now there's a lot of like, I've talked to a lot of people, particularly over the past like 5 years or so, who may not have even been alive when that record came out. And it's like, oh, that's the record, you know? And like, there's just like this newfound like nostalgic love for it, which I'm here for. I think it's cool. So
absolutely. I noticed your shirts, you have the old logo for, you know, in the merch, which is really cool. Kind of a
we had a bunch of people requesting it. They're like, oh, we love that logo. And some of them were like teenagers, like, that's the logo. We're like, cool. Like, you know, that it's from another era, but you know, we'll reprint it. We'll have fun with it. So
that's awesome.
You know, and you know, I think now going back to that record, the thing that I appreciate the most is just honestly, just Corey's riff writing ability. Like he just wrote just such insane stuff. So, you know, I really appreciate that.
I actually met him in Gainesville previous to Acid Depression. I was going to see Branson and Appleseed Cast, and he was in line. I remember I didn't know him, but we were just talking about music, and he's like, I'm going to start a band called Underoath. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, that sounds like, he's like, I wanted to be heavy and metal. And, you know, I was into hardcore at the time, so I was like all about it. And that always sticks in my mind. You know, obviously, you know, a year or two so later, I'm like, oh, well, he really did it. That's pretty cool. Like, that's incredible. And you know, he just obviously passed away a couple years ago here in Jacksonville, and I didn't know him, but I know a lot of people who knew him, and that was really, what are your thoughts on you know, obviously kind of him passing away, and what, you know, looking back on that time with him?
I mean, really, really sad, obviously, but you know, I've said this a couple times, but one of my things that I'm most thankful for is that, you know, we didn't hang out a lot in, you know, the last few years, you know, before he passed, because, you know, he lived you know, a bit far from me. You know, we would keep in touch here and there, phone calls, texts and whatnot. But whenever we did talk, he was the type of person that we told each other exactly how we felt all the time. You know, there was nothing that I would have wanted to say to him that I did not say to him. Like, we were very open about, you know, letting each other know that we loved each other and we appreciated each other. And, you know, I was thankful for him and all of that stuff. So that was really like the first thought that I had when I got word that he had passed. I was just thankful that I didn't have any regrets about, oh, I wish I would have told him how I felt, you know, and I've carried that since then. I try to be more cognizant of that with people in my life. You know, remembering back when he passed, being like, oh dang, like, because I don't want to have that. And you know, he was the type of person to be very open, and you know, I am as well. So I very thankful for that.
Absolutely, man. We're not promised tomorrow, so it's definitely one of those things where, you know, you want to leave with, you know, everything mended if you can, for sure. So the record comes out. It's on Take Hold, obviously, at that point. I feel like the record did fairly well. I mean, I bought it at Furnace Fest, I feel like in 2000, maybe. I don't remember. I know I saw you guys then, and I saw you guys at Cornerstone as well. And I remember it being a buzz record for sure. And then some band members leave.
Mhm.
What kind of bring me through that? Like, you're kind of joining this band, and then all of a sudden there's some member changes, some prominent member changes.
Mhm.
What are your what's your view at that point? Kind of bring me through that from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so my recollection of that for the biggest one was when Corey decided to leave. He was just like, he was wanting to do other things musically, and he was wanting to do things outside of Underoath. And, like I said before, he wrote most everything. There were, things here and there that were written by other dudes, but he was very much like the steerer of the ship. So when we found out that he was going to be leaving, it was very much like a big, from my recollection anyway, a big question mark. I'm like, okay, well, does this even work without him? And Tim joined the fold not long after that, like before we had even said anything publicly about Corey leaving the band. We had approached Tim about joining, and from that point it was just a we'll see what this looks like, but in a lot of ways, we just had to figure out how to be a band again, because the guy that we, like I said, just naturally looked to musically was not there. So Tim came in, Matt left, he also just wanted to do things outside of Underoath. We were kind of trying to figure out what our future was going to be, if there was going to be a future, all of that stuff. So really that whole time post Cries of the Past and pre Changing in Times was just a big, trying to figure out, all right, how do we write? What music do we want to write? Like, do we want to be this heavy band? Do we not? And it was a lot of
what was that like? What was that like with the music? Was it like all over the place? I mean, or was it just, did it kind of click at some point?
Well, I mean, really what ended up on Changing in Times is the distillation of all of that, because Tim, I was into heavy stuff, but I also liked a lot of, more, light indie stuff. Aaron is, I think historically he has probably listened to the least amount of heavy music of anybody in the band. And then when Tim joined the band, he was super into, Appleseed Cast and Branston and Jimmy Eat World and bands like that. So it was just like, all right, well, let's just kind of have this amalgamation of all the stuff that we like, and some of the stuff, was carryover from Corey. So there was this, Changing in Times is this odd record where, we're trying to figure out what we want to write. We're bringing in these melodic elements, but then there's still some holdover stuff from Corey's era, and kind of seeing how do we put all this together? Like, can I remember having discussions at the time of like, I remember vividly, we're like, well, we love Jimmy Eat World. We love the melodic elements of all these different bands, but we're also this heavy screaming band. So is there a world where we could like sing and scream at the same time, or like alternating? Like, could we go back and forth? And, I think that was, once we realized, how good of a voice Aaron had, that was a big shift at that
Absolutely.
point. We're like, oh, we can, try to figure this out anyway. Just, to write music that we're all excited about, and it aligns with our tastes. But I think that's one reason why that record is so all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, what was the recording like for this record? It sounds like you're kind of obviously kind of figuring each other out in that aspect with, Tim coming into the fold, and you, like you even said, Aaron singing. That's a different, avenue of it.
Mm-hmm.
Was this an exciting recording process? And obviously, kind of, did it turn out the way you guys wanted it to?
Yeah, I guess yes to all that. It's funny, as we recorded that record in a 1-bedroom apartment as well, but we lived in that 1-bedroom apartment because we had the same producer for Cries of the Past and Changing in Times, and So what's funny is when we were recording Cries of the Past, we were staying at Chris Caraba from Dashboard Confessional's house, because we were like, well, we can't sleep in this apartment because there's 6 of us and there's a 1-bedroom apartment. But then when we went to go do Changing at Times, we're like, all right, I guess we're just staying in the apartment. So we were all sleeping on the floor in the living room of this apartment. And, it was a very exploratory recording session. Like, I remember not having a bunch of songs done going into the studio. We were going in very much like, okay, let's figure out what this is going to be. And I have glimpses of like specific things I remember. I remember we wanted the drums to sound like a mix between Regulate the Chemicals 238 and Bleed American, Jimmy Eat World. That we were recording during 9/11, which was crazy. I remember we were, our producer woke us up in the morning. He was like, "Hey, get up. Like, you got to turn the TV on." And that was nuts. So yeah, we took the day off. Then we just didn't really know what to do. And then we're all so young. And then the next day we're just like, all right, like, let's get back to work. We got a record to finish, I remember coming out of that recording session and just we were all really satisfied. But we were also just like, we don't know what this means for our band, because this is a very, very much a new thing, because people who are super into Cries of the Past were like, there's a good chance they're not going to like this, but we're super into it, and it was interesting time.
Well, it's a loved record, and it's a fantastic record. When you mentioned all those influences, it totally makes sense hearing that. Now it's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I can hear the Jimmy Eat World. I can hear, the other bands you mentioned as well. How do you feel about the record looking back on it?
If I'm honest, I haven't really gone back anytime recently to revisit that record. I did with Cries of the Past not long ago, probably 6 months ago. I went and I listened through the whole thing. What's funny is I saw there's a band that there's a big fest in Florida, and they covered the first song off Changing at Times. Was the first song, second song? I don't remember. But this song called Letting Go of Tonight, they covered it at this fest. And I was just like, oh dang, I need to go back and listen to that record. And I'm going to at some point, but I think that the way I feel about that record is very similar to the way that I feel about, I think, all of our records, where when I look back at that time and I'm just like, we made the thing that we wanted to make at that time, and that was it, So, it's definitely a time capsule for sure for me.
Absolutely, man. And it really, kind of, was the blueprint for essentially, the future of the band, essentially.
Very much so.
In terms of the melodicness, the heaviness, all that stuff, the chaos. You wind up, obviously, Take Hold gets bought by Tooth and Nail. You wind up, I guess, essentially upstreaming to Tooth and Nail or signing with Tooth and Nail. Kind of bringing me through the thought process there. And, of course, Dallas leaves at this time as well. Kind of in this time frame, kind of bring me through those both those situations from your perspective.
I don't remember the exact timing of both. If I'm remembering correctly, the Tooth and Nail buying Take Hold thing happened first, because I remember that I think there was only 2 bands on Take Hold that got deals at Tooth and Nail. If I remember correctly, it was us and 238.
238, yeah.
And for us, Tooth and Nail was like such a big deal back then.
Oh yeah,
because we loved so many bands that were on that label. And I remember, when we heard that buyout was potentially going to happen, there was like half nervousness, but then also like, oh my gosh, are we about to like hit the big time? Which, for us was, being on the same record label as Zayo, that was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we've made it. So we were, we didn't really know much about the business side of things at that point. We just knew, we were going to be on the same label as a bunch of our favorite bands. So that was, really all the thought that we had into it at that point. But around that time, we ended up parting ways with Dallas, and, that was another situation where, somebody who was so integral to the band, we were just like, all right, well, what does this mean if he leaves? Who do we find? What do we do? And, I, at the time, my girlfriend, who's my wife now, when I was off tour, I would go, just stay at her or at her place, because I was only home for like a week at a time, and I would just sleep on her couch, because I'm like, I want to hang out with her. I don't want to like hang out at my mom's house. And she was living with her best friend, and her boyfriend, her best friend's boyfriend was Spencer, who's now obviously our singer.
Yeah.
And he was in another band called This Runs Through back then. Yeah. And I had heard the stuff that they were doing and the stuff that he was doing. And I told the guys, I was like, yo, like, this dude sounds like a monster. Like he does all this screaming stuff, but he also likes to sing. He loves Code 7. He loves that style of stuff. And that was kind of a direction, we wanted to do a little bit more experimental stuff, a little bit more melodic stuff. He, very long story short, he ended up coming and trying out, and that was that. Which is crazy.
Did it click? Did it click? When he came in, did it click? Did you know pretty instantly, where you're like, yeah, this is it?
I think so. Yeah. He was not sure beforehand, because I had shown him some of the demos that we had recorded with Dallas before Dallas left the band. Because it was like post Changing in Time stuff. Like we were trying to figure out what music we wanted to write. And I had showed him some of that, and he, to talk to him now, he was like, I thought it was hot garbage. He was like, I didn't like it at all. I thought it was not very good. He was like, but, I also, he also recognized that, if he were to come into the band, he would have influence on the music and everything. So he did come and try out, and, I think it was pretty immediate. Once we were actually all in the room, we were just like, oh yeah, okay, this should be a thing that we do. So yeah. Once we got into the room, it was clear. Beforehand, it was murky.
Sure.
So that was our fault.
On a side note, having Dallas leave as a dear friend of yours, what was that like for you individually? I know obviously Spencer came in and crushed it, but it's like, that's a vital friend, a vital part of the band. From your perspective, what was that like losing him?
At first, if I'm honest, it was pretty rough, because that was not at the time a cool, amicable separation like it was with Corey and Matt. Like for them, it was very much like hey, I'm gonna go do something else. But with Dallas, there was a lot more to it. So the final weeks of Dallas being in the band were pretty tumultuous. And he was a friend, is a friend, but after he left the band, there was a period of time there where we were pretty disconnected. So I wish that would have gone a lot smoother, but we were young and just stuck in a van together and not really knowing how to navigate a lot of different things
and communicate. Yep.
Oh, I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to communicate, but man, back then, zero communicate. It's funny. Sure. I went to Tim's house a couple weeks ago for a birthday party, and we had a bunch of friends there, and we had this discussion about when the last time was that we intentionally physically yelled at a person. And our old tour manager was there from back then when Dallas was in the band. Because he's an old friend of ours, and he was there. He was like, I haven't yelled at anybody since the van yelling at Dallas. And we're just laughing because now, like, we're all like super cool. Love Dallas. He loves us. We see each other as much as we can. But back then it was just all this testosterone in this van and like trying to figure out how to make this thing work. And it was pretty chaotic, but thankfully on the other side of it, we grew up a lot and made amends.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah, absolutely. Hey, this is Jeremy from the Rumors Are True podcast. Hang right there. Here's a word from our sponsors. Well, obviously you mentioned Spencer joining the band, different dynamic for sure. And then you start working on They're Only Chasing Safety. Man, what a record. I remember getting this record, I think 6 months or so before. Somebody gave me a advanced copy. I was booking shows. So somebody, I think on tour, had given me a copy of it or something. Mm-hmm. And I remember vividly being like, this band's going to blow up. Like, I just knew it. Like, just the songs were there. Bring me through recording this record, man. Your thoughts, memories from recording this pivotal record.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was very similar to, recording the previous record in the sense that we had the same producer, James Wisner. He did that record as well. But since we had done Changing at Times, he had moved from his 1-bedroom apartment into a house. And I guess just tradition, we're like, hey, we can come stay at your house, right? So we literally all slept at his house.
Wow.
And it was he was married at the time, I believe. I honestly, I can't remember if it was his girlfriend or his wife, but she was living there. And I remember she was very sweet, but she was not super stoked that there were all these dudes living in her house. But no, like I think that record, we knew that we wanted, because the whole Changing of Time cycle, we were touring with all like metal bands, hardcore bands. Like we were touring with like Throwdown and Bleeding Through and Unearth and all these type of bands. And I think unconsciously at the time, we're just like, we want to like do something more melodic. We want to lean into this melody and, we still wanted it to be heavy. We still wanted it to feel good, but we wanted to, have it be a little more melodic. And, we have a song on it, with, Aaron from Copeland, which initially was supposed to be Dave from May, but he wasn't able to make it. So we called Aaron, and because I mean he's so good, and he came in and we were doing all that type of stuff, and it was for us it was very experimental because we were doing all this heavy stuff. We were just like, all right, how far can we push this melodic thing before it doesn't work within the confines of our band. I mean, I think that for me, the recording of that record feels like a blur. I feel like we demoed out almost that entire record. I would say probably at least half of that record with Matt Goldman in Atlanta, before we went into the studio. It was the first time we'd ever really demoed like that. So that was nice to be able to do. I think probably for me, the biggest thing that I remember about that whole process was when it was done, coming out of the studio and being just so, impressed with what we were able to do, but then also having this thought of like, man, we've been touring for the past, 2 years or whatever. And like, just, we've gained these people that like our band, based on us touring with all these heavy bands and like all these breakdowns and stuff. And we're just like, we don't know if people are going to really like this, but we're super proud of it, so we're going to put it out and we'll see what happens. And yeah, and little did we know that that record was going to be the thing that probably the biggest fork in the road of our
Sure.
career. So yeah, it's wild.
Did it turn out the way you wanted it to? I mean, it sounds like it probably did.
Yeah, it did. I think that at the time we probably wanted it to feel more like we were interpreting the songs live, because we were playing a lot of these songs on tour or versions of them in a live setting, and they felt just like well, what's the word I want to use? Like anxious, maybe. Like there was like an energy to them,
Yeah.
And I think at the time we didn't really know how to go about getting a record to sound like and feel like what something comes across like live. So,
Sure.
I think that was
Sure.
probably our only, it wasn't even really a regret. It was more so just like, oh, if we could have gone back and like, I don't know if it was a mix thing or a performance thing. We just recognized that this does not feel the way that it does when we play it live, but we love it. So if we would have had the ability to marry those two things a little more, we probably would have done it. But I think with a record like that, I would never want to go back and change anything now. I think
Sure.
that record is very much what it is, and I wouldn't want to change a thing. So yeah.
Obviously sound like you're proud of it. I mean, like you said, it's a fork in the road for you guys. Just overall, just how do you feel about it looking back on it?
Oh, I mean, I owe, we owe almost everything we have to that record. I think, that was really the first thing that we did where we were like, oh shoot, like a lot more people care about this now. Those songs have taken on, there's been this whole wave of what those songs mean to us. When we put them out, super happy, super proud. The record, it wasn't like an explosion. Like it came out and then it just kept selling the same amount every week. So like we were kind of riding this wave where we were loving that. And as the years went on, there was a point in time where we were just like, no, like we just want to like focus on new stuff and not care about the old stuff. But now, probably over the past 5 years or so, we're recognizing like, oh, these songs are not ours, anymore.
Yeah.
Like these songs have gone on to mean more than what we intended them to. So now when we play those songs, it's very much just like something happens in the room, and like we get to experience what those songs have become, and
That's
I
cool.
think that's super special. So yeah,
That is super special. Man, and it was obviously a successful record. I mean, what was that like? And like you mentioned, a lot of people like this. I mean, you kind of go from, playing smaller venues to all of a sudden probably headlining and being like, whoa, this is a wild ride. What's that like in that, in those moments, just being like, seeing the progression of it getting bigger and bigger?
So for us, it was interesting because that record came out on Warped Tour 2004. And so we were on that tour. So it's weird because our entire view of what that record was completely based on what we were seeing at Warped Tour. So like we started the tour before the record came out, and we're handing out like flyers, like we're all going out just getting sunburned, handing out flyers. Like we would have to find out what time we were playing that day, and then we would write, like each of us would get like 100 cards, and we would write the time, and then we would just walk around and hand them out and try to get people to come and see us. And there would be 30, 40 people, whatever, because nobody really cared who we were at that point. But then by the end of the tour, the crowds at we were on the smallest stage of the whole thing, and the crowds at our stage were as big as the crowds at the main stages to see us, but we're on this dinky stage that had no PA. So we're just like, we don't know what the heck's happening. Like, this is crazy, you know? And we had an off date show of that tour where we were playing, I'll never forget, we were playing in this venue called Alley Cats in Richmond. And we started playing the song "It's Dangerous Business," walking out your front door, and we like heard people screaming the lyrics back at us, and we were just like, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? Because we were finally back in a club. We were indoors, like, where the last time we had been in a club was before that record coming out. So we get back into a club, and that was the moment where we were like, oh wow, okay. Even though we were on this tour and like we could see there was a lot of people, but getting back into a club where we feel like we belong and getting that back, we were like, oh, okay, like now there's something happening here. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that was just a steady, the record came out and it sold. I forget exactly how many it sold, but it just didn't go down. It just sold the same amount every week for a really long time. And it was odd, you know, it was, but and then we went and, you know, toured on that record and, you know, opening up for a bunch of other bands. And, you know, we did our first real headlining tour on that record. And again, just seeing what the reaction was in these clubs that we were going into and just honestly just kind of riding it. We were just like, all right, like people like this. So that's cool. Yeah.
I wound up booking you guys right before Define. It was 2 weeks before Define came out in Wichita, and it was with As Cities Burn, Poison the Well, and Since by Man.
Yeah, that was a good tour.
Yeah, at the Cotillion. Yeah, and I think wasn't Russ Hickman
he was
at that point?
Yep.
Love Russ. He's great.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. Literally just texted with him yesterday.
Dude, he's incredible.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, but you know, having you guys actually were the biggest show I ever booked, which was really cool. You know, I was doing all that mid-range stuff, and you know, wound up booking you guys, and man, what a show! It was so awesome. It's weird because my dad is a pastor, and he, you know, was a music pastor, I should say, and so I never really kind of got that bug. But when I was doing these shows, I felt like my parents came up to the show and brought my kids up and stuff, and I just felt like he was very proud of me that night. You know what I mean? It was like kind of one of those like,
oh, that's cool.
You know, I'm not equating it to being a music pastor, but it's like, oh, my son's doing something in the music world, like, you know, kind of similar. Yeah. So
that's very.
But it was really cool. It's a very memorable night for me.
And there's just something to that, like, no matter what it is, the idea of your parents being like, oh, okay, like you're doing a thing. You're doing a real thing, you know? I think particularly if you're in any sort of art realm, you know, your parents, I think, are generally going to be like, oh, you're doing this thing, huh? So to see, I can imagine that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. But anyway, so I wound up booking you guys 2 weeks before Define. Obviously, you know, through this whirlwind of Chasing Safety touring, you're obviously working on the record, kind of bring me to Define the Great Line record. Another monumental record for you guys. Bring me through the recording thoughts and memories from this record.
So the recording of it, we had toured with Killswitch Engage on They're Only Chasing Safety cycle, because we did this tour called The Taste of Chaos. It was us, The Used, My Chemical Romance, Killswitch, Census Fail, Seosin, a couple other bands. And we had heard what he was doing with other records at that time. You know, he had done the Killswitch stuff, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to figure out who we wanted to do it. And we had actually initially, we wanted Matt Bayless to record it. Because we loved the stuff that he was doing, you know, all the stuff that he was producing. Botch. I mean, we love all the Botch and like that whole world, the Pelican, ISIS world. We were just like, that's our that's where we want to be, you know,
Yeah.
because we knew that this record was leaning darker, like, because we were, I mean, we just did the same thing we did with the 2 records before. We were like, all right, we're in this like melodic world. People, you know, we're touring with all these like melodic bands, but we want to do something different. We want to do something heavy now. And we actually flew down Matt to our spot that we were practicing in, because we were like, oh, well, you do all these other bands that we love, so, you know, we want you to do our record. The fit didn't end up being what we thought it was. Unfortunately, Rad Dude, just, you know, we were like, all right, that's not really feeling like what we wanted it to. And I'll never forget, we were in a hot tub, and we were just like, well, what the hell are we going to do now? And I don't remember who it was, but somebody was just like, we just got off this long period of time touring with Killswitch. And like, we knew our main thing was, like I said, you know, when we did Chasing Safety, we knew that it didn't feel what we felt live. And that was our number one thing we wanted with the next record, was we just want it to feel the way that we feel live. And we're like, Adam makes incredible sounding records.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, he had done the Norma Jean record at that point, but then he was also doing the Killswitch stuff. So like, we heard, our biggest thing with him was the guitars. We were like, whatever the hell you're doing with guitars, like, you know how to do that. And we were like, he knows what we sound like live. He's seen us live a million times. He knows exactly what we want. Why don't we just reach out to him to do the record? So we did. And, you know, we ended up going up to his studio in Massachusetts, and it was snowing the whole time. Like, really, the whole recording process of that, I remember being cold. Like, it was just cold the whole time. You know, but that might seep into the record a little bit, with it being as,
as I say, it's a cold
is,
record for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it was, you know, we went into that record more prepared than we had ever been for any record. You know, we had the songs. I would say, other than vocals, I would say we were probably 90% of the way there before we went into the studio. And I recorded most of my stuff in Atlanta, actually, because I really liked the vibe that I had with Matt Goldman when it came to, like, you know, producing electronic stuff. And so I actually went back to the studio that we demoed They're Only Chasing Safety in, and me and Matt did electronics there. But yeah, it was just, I remember it being I think personally, you know, amongst the band anyway, you know, a little bit more of a turbulent time, you know, because we had just come off this whole years long cycle of They're Only Chasing Safety. We're just burning the candle at both ends, and we went directly into recording To Find the Right Line. And you know, and again, for the, I guess, the 4th time now, I remember coming out of the studio and thinking, man, I love this record, and I'm super proud of us. And there's going to be, I remember I've said this before, but I had a conversation with Spencer when I said, there's going to be a lot of pissed off 13-year-old girls, because, you know, we were very much in that, like, emo scene at that point. And we were just like, man, like, who knows, we're going to just piss a lot of people off. And like, who knows if this is going to be good for us or not. But, you know, because, you know, everybody in a position to have an opinion at that point was like, oh, lean into the melody, lean into the choruses, like, you know, make it more palatable, and you guys will just, like, for what people would consider like success, like, oh, you guys will sell more records, you'll play bigger rooms and all this. But we are very much like contrarian in that we were just like, no, F that. Like, we're just going to do what we want to do. Yeah. And we came out of the studio, and I was, you know, half of me was convinced we just killed any momentum that we had in the band, but we didn't care. We were just like, it's fine. We're just going to do what we want to do. And yeah, I mean, fast forward to when that record came out, again, we were insulated in Warped Tour. It came out in the middle of Warped Tour. So we were, when we started Warped Tour, we were, we had progressed at that point. So we were on a second stage, and that whole time is really weird. Like I'll never forget. We had a meeting with Tooth and Nail, and it was it was the first week that the record came out, and they were just like, this thing is like going bonkers. They're like, it's looking like you're going to be number 2, maybe number 1. And we were just like, out of what? Like, what's the metric? And they were just like, period. Like they're like records, like albums. And I remember being so like, no, like that won't happen. Like just being completely not believing at all.
Unbelievable.
And then that record came out, and it was it was the number 2 record in the country when it came out, and we were on Warped Tour, and it was just, if I'm honest, it was just a very chaotic time. Like we could see what was happening, but personally there was a lot that learning to communicate thing hadn't been working very well. And we were having a lot of inner turmoil.
Yeah.
And but I mean, the record came out and just went bananas. And that tour was just incredible. But then we quit and we went home from that tour because we had so many personal things. We were just like, not looking at it big picture. We were just like, oh, we're just going to go home. When in hindsight, looking back at it, like from a career standpoint, we're like, wait a second, like you're maybe the biggest band on this tour at this point. Your record comes out, it's number 2 in the country. And then it's just like, oh, we're just going to go home. Like the adult side of me now is just like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? But
I get it.
We're still kids, we're figuring it out.
Man.
But that record overall, to this day, there's not a thing I would change. To this day, I'm still proud of front to back, everything on that record.
Wow.
Sonically, songwriting, I still love the way it sounds. I still love the songs. There's not a song I don't love. And that's the first record that we ever did that a year after every record that we did, by a year after doing it, we were just like, oh, that sucks. Let's write something good. Not let's do something new. It's just, we need to do something good. And that was the first record that we did, where a year later, when we were looking into, doing another record, we're like, damn, like, that record's good. Like, what do we do now? Yeah. Like it wasn't about doing something good. It was about doing something better, or doing something that we loved as much.
Sure.
So yeah.
Sure. What Billboard record beat you guys? I forget. What was the one that you had?
It was, who was it?
I remember when this was happening.
It was some female solo artist. Oh man.
Brittany?
No, it
Christina?
was she was more of like a acoustic
Jewel?
Not Jewel.
It's fine. It's not a big deal. I'll look it up later. I just was curious.
I want to say it's not her, but I like a Joan Osborne type.
Oh yeah.
It may have been Natalie Imbruglia.
Imbruglia?
Hey, hold on. I'm going to Google it. Hold on. This makes for awful podcasting.
I'm curious now too, because I was like, I remember this happening June and being like, well, I can't believe it is.
2006 number.
That's so funny.
Record. Let's see the song.
Hilarious.
No. Number 1.
You should have this bookmarked on your phone, dude.
I know. Nelly Furtado. That's who it was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, it's
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So if
Well-
it weren't for Nelly Furtado, then we would have done it. But oh well.
What I mean, you go from you talk about going from the small tours and then progressive getting bigger to almost having the number one record in the world and on Billboard. I mean, are you? I know you talked about the inner turmoil and all this stuff, but like for you, were you just like, what is going on?
Yeah, there was no way for us to understand any of it, like, because coming from the world that we came from, like, even when we started, the idea of even playing at a thing like the Warped Tour was like, oh, well, that's what other bands do, that's not what we do, and I feel like that's kind of been a thing throughout an entire career. It's like, oh, well, those are real bands, what are we gonna do? We've never really felt like a real band. It's like we just feel like we're fooling everybody into thinking we're a real band. So objectively now, when I look at all of that stuff, it's like, wow, like that's crazy, but it still feels like separate, like not us, so no, we, especially back then, because we were, a lot way younger, and not really experienced in living life a lot. We were in this bubble. We had been, around each other nonstop for, years at that point. And, I don't think we were equipped to be able to handle that at that point. Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously kind of taking a break, a breakup, essentially a hiatus. What was that like in that time for you? Were you uncertain if the band was going to get back together, or was it like, hey, let's take a break and come back and meet up and see where we're at?
We didn't really know. There was, again, it was all just personal stuff at that point. And, it didn't last very long. We were just like, hey, we're going home. And then, we ended up working our stuff out, and, we got back on the road and did end up, I don't remember exactly how long it was. I think it was a couple months. But I remember in hindsight, like there was really not a whole lot that was fixed. It was more so we've gotten to a point now where we can, get back on the bus, and be cool. I think a lot of that stuff that was, plaguing our personal relationships back then, it wasn't really until, we actually broke up, back in 2012 we broke up.
Okay.
Not to jump ahead, but like we didn't really fix a lot of that stuff until after we actually broke up. So
no, I get it, man. You're like you mentioned, you're still young, you're still kind of figuring it out, and sometimes you throw a Band-Aid on it and it doesn't, heal the wound, unfortunately.
And I think that's just where with relationships in general, totally. I think that particularly, the band dynamic relationship is so unique, and this, I always compare it to you're married to a bunch of other super opinionated dudes, and it's just like, bro, like, I mean, having a marriage last 25 30 years is like almost never happens, but imagine being married to 5 other people who also are very it's,
I know, I get it,
it's
man.
wild.
It is a relationship. I mean, it really is, like you said, it's very much like that, and you spend more time with them than your spouse for the most part,
at that point. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, obviously you get back together like you mentioned, and you wind up putting out Lost in the Sound of Separation, a great record as well. Kind of bring me through recording this record. Obviously, was it harder to write this record at that point just because of the tension or kind of getting back together? Kind of what was that like recording this record?
That record, a lot of the stuff that sticks out to me about that record was we were, I would say, for the first real time starting to pull apart musically I remember specifically Aaron really wanting to have a lot more melody. Like he was wanting to sing a lot more. He was wanting to have a lot more melodic stuff. And really all the rest of us were like, no, like we want to we want it to be dirtier. We want it to be louder. And, there's a lot that goes into that as well. If you were to talk to Aaron about this, he'd go on at length about, stuff that he had going on at the time and,
Sure.
what he thought he wanted at the time. And, also the same with us. But that, I'm just incredibly proud of that record, being able to work with Adam again, being able to work with Matt Goldman again was great.
Yeah.
And, I remember we were, we were in a studio in Atlanta. It was a really great environment. But yeah, I remember that being really, there had always been contention in the studio, but not at a root level, more of like a part by part or, a minute level, but really like at a root level, we were, warring a bit musically. So, but that record, I think, comes out of that tension, and I'm still super proud of that record. And that's another record that, I would never go back and change anything. I think that, there are a lot of people that I talk to that, that's their favorite record. And, and it is the first record that we did that we didn't feel like we had to write something good. We were very happy with our general music direction. I think we were kind of just coming into our own musically, and we're like, oh, this feels good, and so we didn't really feel like we had to prove that we could write music good. We just wanted to do something new that we loved. So yeah,
sure. It's a great record. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think it's the next progression, obviously, and do you feel like, you kind of mentioned, obviously, Aaron wanted to be more melodic. I guess when you were doing Define, was that the same case, or was he all on board? Was his music taste changing essentially, you think? Or
no, I mean, all of our tastes have always been all over the board as far as what we like to listen to. But we were all on the, again, from my recollection, Define the Right Line was very much like we're all going right in this direction, but then when Lost in the Sound came about, it was like it was the first time that I remember like literally like saying like, no, like we're not going to do that. Like we're going to do this. And so that's
intense. Like just the thought of that, just being like having to be so direct about it. Just, like you said, you have this unified front, and then now it's like you see some cracks here, not in a bad way, but musically, that definitely can be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, in hindsight, in a bad way, because Aaron ended up leaving the band after that. But
yeah. Well, I was going to get to that next, but yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the touring for this, is it still pretty steady in terms of like the amount? I mean, do you still see the same amount of people coming out, or is it?
Yeah, it just, the touring in general, from Chasing Safety into Define the Right Line into Lost in the Sound of Separation, it was just it was nonstop. Like we were very much from the world of like, we were road dogs, and we equated the amount of time that we were on the road and how many shows we were playing to, okay, this is how much effort you are putting into the band. If you really believe in it, then you're out on the road. So the idea of like taking a break from touring, even for a period of time, was just like not even talked about. So we, recorded, we had already had, from my recollection, before we even put out the record, we had already had the entire touring cycle planned out,
ready to go.
So, at that point, that's when it really kind of started to feel like a a machine, like we're like, all right, like,
Yeah.
this is pulling us along, and then we didn't see it as a negative at the time. We're just like, oh, this is amazing. We get to do this. Like people like our band, they like what we're doing. So, being thankful in that sense, but it's not, except for hindsight, being able to look at it and say like, oh, I could see where that was leading,
Sure. Well, obviously the record comes out and you mentioned Aaron leaving. Aaron's amazing. Love the dude. From your perspective, what was that like losing Aaron, in that time?
That was another situation where, it was not a great situation personally. That was not something that came about from, good discussion amongst friends.
Sure.
That came about just from, in hindsight, looking at it, and the combination of he had a lot of stuff going on at the time, but then also like we were not communicating, we were not breaking from touring, we were on the road constantly, and that just kind of blew up. And
Sure.
he wanted to go in a completely different direction in his life and in his music, and at that time anyway. And we were very much like, hey, we want to keep doing this, and let's see what the next step was. I think that at that point it was not a discussion of like, oh, well, are we going to keep doing this? It's an immediate like, all right, well, who are we getting? Like, well, let's we're going to get a ripper, and who's it going to be? And we obviously knew that losing his voice, and he's such a huge creative force in the band, and we knew that was going to be a thing, but we kind of just viewed it the way that we always viewed stuff at that point. We're just like, well, we're just going to do what we want to do, and if people like it, they do, and if they don't, they don't, and that's fine. So yeah.
Well, you bring in Daniel Davison from Norma Jean. Yeah. What was that like recording the record with him? And of course you recorded with my homie Jeremy Griffith.
I love that
on
guy.
Disambiguation. Yeah, Griff's incredible, amazing dude, super talented.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, no, that whole recording process was it was in a way similar to back when we were doing Changing in Times, where we're just like, all right, well, how does this work now? Because Aaron was leaving, which meant an actual voice in our band was leaving, so Spencer was needing to take over all the vocal duties.
Wow.
We have this new guy in the band, but we had known Daniel for forever, so like there wasn't a personal getting to know you period. It was more so just like, all right, how do we write music together? Like, what does this look like? And really, from my impression at the time, it was very much like, okay, like Aaron was wanting to go in this direction, everybody else was kind of wanting to go in this direction, so he's gone, so we are now going to all run in this same direction, and I think that record reflects that. It is very, very heavy, super experimental, but writing with Daniel, just I just love the dude, like just a absolute gem of a human.
Awesome.
Such a good drummer, such a good songwriter. Like he's just on another level. And I mean, you just look at his discography and everything that he's done, it's like, oh damn, that's all the same guy. Like he's great. So I we worked really well together. And the recording process for that was I remember it being really fun, because we went back to the studio that were recorded Lost in the Sound of Separation in, and me and Tim actually lived at the studio. There was bunk beds upstairs, and we stayed there. So that was fun. And I remember getting done with that, and just being like, all right, like this is what we got. Let's see how it goes. And again, was very much like getting out of the studio with Lost in the Sound, where it was like the roadmap was already paved. It's like, all right, we're going to put this out. We're going to go tour for a year and a half. And then, so it was, again, looking back on it and seeing where everything went, it's like, oh, like that was probably not a good thing. Like didn't take a break, didn't, is an immediate, like, all right, we're going to get a new drummer. We're going to write music. We're going to record.
Yeah.
We're going to hit the road. Like, and but no, I'm still super proud of that record. I think for me, the only thing personally that I would change on that record is like, there's a lot of sonic, choices that were made that I would make different today. Not songwriting, not performance, just pure sonics, like the way some of the things sound. I would like to, I wish that they sounded a little different.
No, I get that. So, what made you guys choose Griff?
How did that come about? It came about through Matt, if I remember correctly. I'm probably not the best person to ask this because
he worked with Matt. He was at Matt's studio. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that the only thing I remember is that we were in the same sphere as him, and we're just like, oh, like he's, he had a lot of really cool ideas. And, I remember specifically, at the time he was very much like, all right, well, this is cool, but can we make it sadder? Can we make it sadder? And I was just like, oh yes, like that's like my thing. So he's very much, we clicked really, really well in that.
He's supremely talented. He's an incredibly gifted person.
He's great.
Incredible. So obviously you put the record out, the machine is in full force, but then you wind up obviously breaking up for good, like you mentioned. Kind of bring me through that, what that was like, what the decision making was like on your part at least, and just kind of what that break was like for you.
Yeah. So, really what that came down to was it just being a culmination of all the stuff that I was talking about before, just the not taking a break, the, only recognizing time on the road as the effort being put into the band. Like it really came to a point where, me and Tim and James, we were the guys in the band with kids at that point. And, we were like, well, we don't want to be on the road as much as we have been, but really at that point, the idea of like just doing the band differently was not something that we were even thinking about. It was like, oh, okay, well, it's in hindsight, it's so odd that we're like, all right, well, we're not going to do this anymore because we want to be present dads, like we want to be at home and we want to be able to raise our kids, when we were looking at the schedule that we had, and, we had never known any different, and, had, personal, stuff going on as well. But, it really came down to just, feeling like there was a choice to be made between the band and being present for our wives and kids. So, so we ended up, breaking up. And, it wasn't like a hiatus because, I sold, all my equipment or gave it away. It was literally like, okay, like now, what is next, and it was an odd time for me, because I said this before, but I'll never forget waking up in the morning, the morning after what I thought was our last show. And I was like, oh, this is the first time since I've been an adult that I am not Chris from Underoath. Like I am now just
your identity,
Chris Dudley, and that was odd. But, to, fast forward a little bit, like that time when we were not a band was so, fulfilling for me. Like some of my favorite times period were around that time. I was working remotely for this this software company in DC. So literally I was just in my office at home, and I would work during the day. I would hang out with my kids. I would go get lunch. I'd go to the movies at night, hang out with my wife. And like, it was just, that was my life.
Normal.
Yeah. And it was just the sickest. And for me, when the discussion started being talked about, like, hey, like, do we want to, because we were coming up on the 10-year anniversary of Define the Right Line coming out. And we were all on a group chat and stuff, like, kind of never stopped that. And we were like, oh, like, what if we played a show, to commemorate this record? Like, that would be a cool thing to do. And it kind of snowballed into like, well, what if we like did a run of shows? Like, what if we did a tour? Like, that would be cool. And then, really I was looking at like the job that I had at that point. And I was like, all right, well, how much time can I get off to go on this tour? And we did that. And it wasn't until really the middle of that tour that we started talking about like, oh, like, is there a world in which we can do this? Because we Aaron was back, and we were just reconnecting personally again, and it just felt really, really good. And we were like, is there a way to do this band, that is as advantageous for like dudes, at the time in our 30s as it was when we were like in our early 20s, and
Sure.
That was what kind of spawned the idea of like actually becoming a band again and not just like playing a couple shows. So
Yeah. What obviously, you mentioned, having those moments. Was there a particular moment that you can think of where you were like, for you, I want to do this? Was there anything in particular that you just felt like, was it maybe a show or maybe a moment in a show where you just were like, this is what we want to pursue? You guys all got off stage and you're like, yes, this is it. Was there anything like that?
I would like there to be that. I think that would make a little bit better of a story of just like, oh, we played this thing and it like clicked, But for me, it really was a deliberation, because I love being in the band so much and playing shows. Like, there's nothing like that experience. But
Sure.
I recognize like what I had at home. And I was like, I want to give that up? Like, I get to hang out with my kids all day. I get to hang out with my wife all day. I get to just be. And it wasn't until we really sat down to have a serious discussion about what the band would look like if we were to do it again. I had to deliberate on it. And it really came down to everybody recognizing like, hey, like, we can say no to stuff, what wasn't even on the table before we broke up. The idea of like an opportunity coming up and any of us being like, hey, I can't do that because X. Like, it was like, well, no, like, the band takes precedent over everything. Like, you want to be home for your anniversary, like, celebrate with her before you leave. Like, oh, you want to be home for your kid's birthday. It's like, well, can you fly home the day before when we have the day off? Like, that sort of thing. So when I realized that we were all on that same page, we're like, hey, like, we can do this on our terms. Like, we can tour for 2 weeks and then not do anything else, if we want to. Those sort of discussions where I was like, oh, like, could I have my cake and eat it too? Could I be in this band? Could I create music with my friends? Could I still be able to do this thing and also be home an amount that to me is acceptable? So, we had kind of had an internal dialogue about like, okay, X amount of time on the road per year is easy for everybody. So let's commit to that. And then, I think it was, something like 3 months or something like that. but spread out throughout the year. So it was like you're really just
Sure.
home all the time, but then you get to go and do this thing. So, and that was really where I was like, oh, okay, like looking at the logistics and being like, there was never a question of if I wanted to do it. I always wanted to do it, but it was more so
If
like,
it made sense.
does it make sense? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you obviously get back together, and you wind up signing to Fearless. Was just out of curiosity, was there any other labels kind of blowing you guys up for a record deal, and why Fearless?
We met with everybody basically at that point. Because when we knew we were going to be doing a record, like we had a lot of meetings, and a lot of them we walked out just like very confused on how the math that some labels
Sure.
would be doing, and it's finding a good label is it's not a thing that is it's not easy to do, but really a label is made up of like whatever team it is that are working with you. And I've said that when we signed to Fearless, the team that we had working with us at Fearless was maybe the best team that we had ever working at a label for us. We were comparing them to like when it was very similar to when Define the Right Line came out. The team that we had working at Tooth and Nail at the time were just like, they were all like A+, like so good at what they did, so passionate. And like we saw a lot of that in the team at Fearless at the time. So that was when we did make that deal, we felt really good about it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
You wind up putting Erase Me out, different, a departure from for the band in a lot of ways, and in a lot of good ways. And let's talk about this record, kind of your thoughts on it. Obviously getting back together, starting to ride again. Was it natural? Did it come back to you guys like riding a bike essentially, and kind of bring me through the recording of this record?
Yeah, so I think there was a. I think I only recognize this now looking in hindsight, but there was a reacquainting process with Aaron that was going on in regards to like his, because he had been out of the band for a record, and we had decided that he was going to come back, and talking to him now, he's said openly like I wasn't really sure what my place was in regards to the creative process. I didn't really know where I should like step in, where I should step out. So, we were figuring all that stuff out again. But, in general, that record was very, very similar to a lot of the other ones in the sense of like, we're like, well, we're doing what we want to do now. Who knows if anybody's going to like it, but we really like it, And, we recorded that record in Maryland, and, this studio that we loved. And, we hadn't written together in a long time at that point. It had been years. So we were kind of coming back together, and, similarly to, previous records, we were trying to figure out like, okay, well, what do we want the band to sound like? And I think that like, we really didn't figure that out until after that record came out. I think every record that we do, it's been very different from, we're not really big on writing the same record multiple times. But I think that even after Erase Me came out, we were still like, okay, well, what do we want? Like, where do we want this to land? But I'm super proud of that record. I think it turned out really cool. And, it was a big, obviously because, we got back together. So that's like, the back together record, excuse me. And it, took us a lot of, wild places, and, it's just, that was a whole crazy time in general.
Was this with Matt Squire?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. I had him on the podcast before. He's fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
When obviously you guys are gone and you come back, what's the reception like for you guys in terms of I mean, do you think, oh, all these people, like, are you kind of curious? Are people still care about us? What's that perspective like?
Well, we had already kind of done that in regards to that tour that we booked. We did
Oh, that's right.
a anniversary tour for Defying the Great Line for like a 10-year thing. And when we did that tour, we really felt the love that people had. And we were just like, man, like people care.
No, that makes sense.
Our band means a lot to them. So then at that point, it was more so just like, all right, well, you know, what music do we want to write? You know, once we decided we wanted to be a band again. You know, and again, it's similar to, you know, most of our other records where you have, you know, people who love it. And then you have, you know, in the case of, you know, like Defying the Great Line, you know, a bunch of pissed off 13-year-old girls who wanted us to, you know, do this, but we ended up doing that. So, you know, some people loved it, some people didn't. And, you know, I think that's just kind of always been the case for us. So,
sure.
You know, yeah, we were just, we're happy with it. So yeah,
I was gonna say, well, how do you feel about it? That's what I want to know.
Oh no, I'm still super proud of it. Like you know, I go back and listen to it now, and like, you know, there's you know, some songs that I like more than others. Like, I don't think that's a record for me that I'm like, oh, like I would never go back and change anything. Like there's some things where I'm like, oh, I wish we would have done this, or I wish we'd have done that. And I think that's because, like I said, we are still trying to figure out our dynamic. We're still trying to figure out, you know, what we wanted it to be. And, you know, for me, it wasn't until the following record where we were like, aha, okay, that's it. Like, yeah.
So obviously this record comes out, you know, you're kind of doing it on your own terms, which is great. It's what a blessing. Then you obviously put out Voyeurist, the last record you guys put out. Kind of bring me through recording this record. Kind of obviously you said it kind of clicked for you guys on this one. Yeah, tell me what this was like.
Yeah, I mean, that one for us, you know, we really were just like, you know, because we'd worked with Matt Squire on the previous record, and, you know, he was great, but we really wanted to just be in a studio with just us, you know, be like, all right, well, what does that look like for, you know, because at that point we were all, you know, able somewhat to do all this on our own with our equipment. So we were like, well, let's just do that, you know, and we had our friend JJ, who was our front of house guy.
Yeah, I know JJ. Yeah, he's great.
Yes. Yeah. So he came into the studio with us and was, you know, engineering. And, you know, that was what's funny is when that record came out, I remember a lot of people saying like, oh, this is the record that I expected after you guys got back together, you know, like, or this is the record I would have wanted after, you know, Disambiguation or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we really were just like, oh, like we're in it. Like, it's just us. Like, we're here.
Sure.
We're, you know, very on the same page musically. Like, there's not that like pulling away. It's very much just like, oh, we're going to go in this direction. And, you know, I'm just super proud of that record. I love it. And, you know, when we, I think it was very similar when we went into do Lost in the Sound of Separation. We were all still so happy with Defying the Great Line. So when we went into the studio to do the place after this one, we were still so happy with Voyeurist, and we just like, I still look back on that record. I think for me, I still have a sonic thing with Voyeurist that similarly in the way that I do with Disambiguation, where I was like, I wish that it sounded a little bit different. But again, that's a hindsight thing. So, you know, at the time I was super, super happy with it. I still like the songs. I'm still incredibly proud of, and I love that record. I just, there are some sonic things I wish it sounded a little different. So, yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that sonically, when it comes to, like you said, you guys kind of had the reign on that, do you think having someone else as a different ear would have helped with that? Or do you think it's just something
that fully came down to us having our hands in too much, that we, you know, that's all that is. We should have handed sonically we should have handed some of that off to people who are better at that, and we should have gotten out of the way.
I get it.
Not that the crew we had working on the record, they're all top notch. The problem is we were in the weeds with everything, like with the just with every sound. We're like, we want it to sound like this, and we should have just been like, here's the songs, we're gonna record the songs, you do what you do on them. So we should have gotten out of the way.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, and but it's still a good record, nonetheless.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, I love it. I'm super proud of it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And last year, was it last year? Yeah, you guys put out the place after this one. Yeah, man. You're just churning them out now, which is great. Bring me through recording this record.
Yeah, that one's funny because we went to write. A little writing trip. We got an Airbnb in Georgia, and we're like, let's just get together and write. And it was not long after being there that we realized how much we loved the spot, and we were just like, we should just do the whole record here. Awesome. Because we all had like our own individual studios, and we were like, let's just get like a Frankenstein rig of all of our equipment and just bring it up to this Airbnb. We literally just took all the furniture from the living room and put it out on the deck, and then we just set up a studio, and we were there for, I think it ended up being like almost a month recording the record. But that was another thing where we had a friend of ours that we wanted to work with on a production end, because he's really talented when it comes to that stuff. And so it was a friend of Aaron's from Nashville, so we had him come up, and we just held up in a Airbnb and just ripped it, and got pretty experimental. And the stuff that we did on that record, I don't think that we could have done at any other point in our career. And it's even though it only came out a little over a year ago, I still am looking back and I'm just like, dang, like what for me anyway, is like a very much a time capsule for that.
Sure.
Right. Exactly then, and that's it. I love so much about that record. The songs, some of them are just, we would get to a point in writing a song where we're like, all right, well, what else could we do here? As opposed to just like, yeah, this is good, we'll move on. We were getting pretty surgical with it. In general, like, and we had a whole touring cycle off of that record, and the people connected with it, and it was it's, I don't know, it's just crazy to see in general the idea that like something that we all get together and we make, and we're just like, we really love this, like we hope that other people like it, it's ours, and then we put it out, and then we go and we play shows, and other people get it, and it you get to see that in real time. And that's just it's never not going to be weird to me, like even now we're starting to talk about new music, and we're throwing stuff back and forth to each other, like little demos and stuff, and we're already getting excited. And I'm just like, the idea that now the stuff that I'm working on, it's like in a year and a half or whenever it ends up being, it's like it's then going to be something that literally outlasts all of us, and that's, I don't know. It's cool and scary and weird, but it's wild.
Well, it's a great record as well. We're just out of curiosity, where were you guys in Georgia?
Blue Ridge Mountains.
Oh yeah, I love those area. That area is amazing.
Yeah, it was that's
really my
cool.
territory for work, so I go up there every once in a while.
Oh, it's great.
That's awesome, man. Very, very cool. We mentioned earlier, obviously have the Define the Great Line 30th anniversary.
20th,
right? Yeah. 20th, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it'll get there eventually, but yeah.
20th. Yeah, I guess it was
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah,
2000. Sorry,
2006. Yeah.
20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Stellar lineup. Yeah,
I'm
kind of
very
bring me through
excited.
that. How exciting that is for you guys, and yeah, biggest tour you've ever done. You said.
Yeah, it's crazy. When we were trying to figure out, we knew we wanted to do something for it, and it really for us came down to the idea of just getting friends that we've had for, mostly as long as that record's been out,
Sure.
and hitting the road. Cause we did a 20th anniversary tour for They're Only Chasing Safety. And it was one of my favorite things we've ever done. But we brought a band called Static Dress out, and we just thought they were really cool. Like it wasn't like a thing where people were like, oh, we got to go catch Underoath and Static Dress. It was like we were just happened to bring them along, and like we wanted to expose them to a lot of people.
Sure.
But when we were putting this together, we were very much like, we want this to be a pure on celebration of this record with our friends that have been around since then. And so when we were thinking up, we thought about August Burns Red and everybody else, and it was like an immediate, because our first like real club tour that we did, Atreyu took us out and we were opening for them. So
Crazy.
That's kind of like a full circle thing. And then, Emery and Acides Burn, we've been friends with those guys forever. And so to have all of those bands on the same bill, it's special for us, but we also, when we were putting the idea together, we were just like, man, we think people are going to love this lineup. And so that's, I think it's going to be sick. I'm very stoked. And it's, it's our biggest headlining tour we've ever done. And, the fact that like everything, I guess everything we've talked about today is just kind of leading up to that is, it's crazy, and be able to celebrate that record. And, we're doing some cool stuff there. So I'm stoked to do it.
That's exciting, man. Let me ask you, I know you kind of, in between the band, you kind of been working on movie soundtracks. I was just curious, kind of bring me through that. I've always thought that was interesting and cool, how you maybe got into it and kind of what you've really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, no, it's always been something I've wanted to do. And, right around 2019 ish, or probably 2018. I actually like took concrete steps to actually do it. I've always been just such a movie nerd and, a film score nerd. And, it's just one of those things. I was watching something with my wife one night, and I don't even remember what it was, but I made the comment for like the 100th time of like, oh man, I would love to do that one day. Like she's like, well, why don't you just do it? And like, it's kind of a longer story there, but I was like, all right, like
sure.
It's a whole thing of just like, all right, making the commitment. Like I'm going to do it. And I've been doing it for a while now. I've been able to work on some awesome films and, got more in the pipeline. And, that's something that, I would like to be able to do into my elderly years, just honestly, just being able to be in here and like have my whole station. It's just me, and have a film and be able to
create,
write music to it. And then, similarly to what I was saying about being in the studio and then having the show, it's like, being able to work on a film for, a month or two. And then, 8 months later, being able to go and sit in a theater and be able to watch it is just like,
it's wild.
It's crazy, man. It's really cool.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad you could, obviously fill your time with that as well with the band and just be able to kind of just, like I said, be creative and kind of do what you were built to do. So that's really cool, man.
It's
I love hearing that.
I've hit the life lottery numerous times, so I'm very very thankful, very thankful.
That's sweet, dude. Favorite record you've been a part of and favorite song? I know this is really difficult for a lot of people, but
oh shoot. Right now, I'll say my favorite song. I'll do "Desolate Earth." The End Is Here. Okay. Favorite record. right now I'll say Define the Great Line, just because it's top of mind, because I'm literally mid prep for this tour.
Sure.
Getting stuff ready for it.
It's a ripper, dude. It's a ripper.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Dude, for sure. Chris, what are your thoughts on the impact, the legacy, the influence of the band overall, just from your perspective?
I don't know what the lasting, I even hate using the term impact, legacy, because it makes it seem so like grandiose. My whole thing is always the fact that stuff that me and my friends get together and create, the fact that I can get in a room with my friends and jam and write music and record it, the fact that it means as much to people as some of my favorite records mean to me is like crazy. And, again, just the fact that all this stuff that I'm doing and we're doing is going to outlive, both of us, it's going to be around forever is like not something I think about a whole lot, but every now and then I'm just like, man, that's crazy, and, I would hope that, people just, if again, just getting enjoyment out of what it is that we do. I know the records for me that, formed who I am, and, knowing that our records are those records to some people, like I still don't think I can fully grasp that. That's like an odd concept to me, but the fact that I know objectively that it's true is very cool, and I'm just super thankful, and we're going to keep doing what we do, and as ever, we're going to do what we like, and hopefully people dig it, and just keep it on.
Heck yeah, bro. I know you can't predict the future, Chris, but what does the future look like for you?
For me, gonna keep trying to raise cool kids. One of ours she'll be out of the house in no time. We got 2 more on their way. Keep trying to be a good husband. Try not to blow all that. Keep jamming with my friends as long as we want to. And then eventually my goal is to at the end of all this, just be able to look back and be like, man, that was cool. So
I think you're there.
I'm trying.
That's awesome. Chris, I've super enjoyed this conversation. Super honored that you give me your time, man. I really, really appreciate it. And
thanks for doing it.
Being able to work with you guys over the years and just kind of hang out and see you guys over the years is just the progression. And you guys are great people. I love being around you guys, and I'm really honored to know you guys. So thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Dude, same, bud. Thank you. Talk soon.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for tuning in again and again. I really deeply appreciate it. Week in and week out, it's been awesome. Thank you so much again. If you'd like to add me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rumors Are True Cast, if you'd like to like and subscribe the podcast, you know the drill, guys. Got a website as well, www.therumorsartruecast.com, with all the episodes on there as well. Got some merch on there available as well through the links. So thank you again for checking that out. Thank you to Chris Dudley. Awesome conversation. Super honored to have you on the podcast to bring me through your journey. Super cool to hear your stories, and just really grateful to get to know you over the last couple years, and just really appreciate your time. So thank you again to Chris Dudley. Got some incredible artists on the horizon, guys, and you know it, nostalgia is still a heck of a drug. The podcast is produced by Wesley Hill, artwork by Jared Chase Bowser, and music by Brian Jaron. This episode is dedicated to the memory of my dear friend, producer, and man of many talents, Brian Jaron.